Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Mantra.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Market Mantra, in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. My name is Rajesh Lake and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Manoj Pathak.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र के ताजा अंक में आपका स्वागत है। आधे घंटे के इस कार्यक्रम में हमेशा की तरह हम हाजिर हैं देश और दुनिया की चुनी हुई कारोबारी, आर्थिक और शेयर बाजार से जुड़ी हुई ताजा खबरों को लेकर। हमारे साथ खबरों पर ऑनलाइन चर्चा के लिए आज आमंत्रित हैं वरिष्ठ आर्थिक पत्रकार उदयन रे। उदयन, कार्यक्रम में आपका स्वागत है।
वेलकम उदयन।
धन्यवाद, थैंक यू।
आइए शुरुआत करते हैं अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइन से, जिसे लेकर मौजूद हैं राजेश लेख।
Domestic equity markets closed with modest losses amid mixed global cues. Sensex ends at 38,365. Nifty settles at 11,317. The rupee weakens 25 paise against the US dollar, and oil declines for the fifth session in a row to trade below $42 a barrel.
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों से मिले जुले संकेतों के बीच मामूली घाटे के साथ बंद हुए घरेलू शेयर बाजार। सेंसेक्स 38,365 पर हुआ बंद। निफ्टी 11,317 दर्ज हुआ। $1 की तुलना में रुपया 25 पैसे कमजोर हुआ और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों में कच्चे तेल के दाम में लगातार 5वें सत्र में हुई गिरावट। तेल की कीमत, ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमत $42 प्रति बैरल से नीचे आई। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों से मिले जुले संकेतों के बीच घरेलू शेयर बाजार में आज कुल मिलाकर बिकवाली तेज रही और प्रमुख सूचकांक घाटे के साथ बंद हुए। हालांकि शुरुआती कारोबार में लिवाली दिख रही थी, लेकिन कारोबार के अंतिम चरण में भारी बिकवाली की गई और सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी दोनों घाटे में रहे। मिड कैप और स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में कहीं अधिक बड़ी गिरावट देखने को मिली। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स कारोबार के अंत में 52 अंक यानी 0.14% घटकर 38,365 पर बंद हुआ। उधर नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी 38 अंक यानी 0.33% घटकर 11,317 दर्ज हुआ। विस्तृत बाजारों की ओर चलें तो छोटी और मझोली कंपनियों के शेयरों में कहीं बड़ी गिरावट देखने को मिली है। बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स 1.49% नीचे आ गया। स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में 0.93% की गिरावट हुई।
Domestic markets today powered all intraday gains to close with modest losses as investors dialed down the exposure to riskier assets amid mixed global cues. The BSE Sensex witnessed heavy selling in the last hour of trade and finally closed at 38,365, down 52 points or 0.14%. On similar lines, the broader NSE Nifty slipped 38 points or 0.33% to finish at 11,317. On the other hand, the broader market at the BSE underperformed the Sensex and closed with losses. The mid-cap declined 1.49%, while small-cap fell 0.93%. Tata Steel was the top loser in the Sensex pack, shedding 4.1%, followed by Bharti Airtel, Axis Bank, ONGC, Sun Pharma, NTPC and SBI. On the other hand, HCL Tech, Infosys, Reliance Industries, TCS, ICICI Bank and Tech Mahindra were among the gainers, rising by up to 2.3%. BSE Telecom, Metal, Basic Materials, Realty, Industrials, Capital Goods and Utilities indices fell by up to 4%, while IT, Energy, Tech and Oil and Gas ended in the positive territory. Then the experts are terming it as a normal correction. Do you think the sentiment was mainly impacted by sell-off in global markets and weaknesses in banking sectors? And also there was some tension observed in the India-China front also which dented the investors' sentiment?
Rajesh, I would tend to agree with you, and there are a couple of reasons why things haven't. One other way of looking at it is a correction or a decline like this could have gone further downwards. But there is also lots of information now that's coming in, which is this that in the first days of September, there's more data and more information coming in about recovery in some sectors of the economy. And remember, there are still quite a few areas where our economy is still kind of not opened up at all, like hospitality and entertainment sort of areas. So those areas are still shut. And some of the areas that have opened up, the information and data is beginning to come in, which is indicating that there is a movement back towards, shall we say, towards normalcy, shall we say. It's not normal, but the journey has begun out there. So I would agree, to summarize, I would agree that this is one of those regular kind of corrections.
Okay, I'll draw your attention to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization's Global Food Price Index, the FPI, which has risen for a third successive month in August, and it has reached its highest value since February. What should be the response of the government and the Reserve Bank of India? Rising global prices would be, on the face of it, be a worry when domestic consumer food inflation was already at 9.62% in July. So on the positive side, the rupee has appreciated against the dollar. And going forward, that along with the RBI's own recent change of strategy to allow the rupee to strengthen should somewhat offset any imported inflationary pressures that we may have. So would global food prices looking up would help more than hurt?
Well, Rajesh, number one, typically during this period, every year you do see a spike in food inflation. I mean, year on year it happens. It's a seasonal effect. And, come the festive season, it tends to come down. Now, I'm sure the government and other authorities will be watching. If they see the spike still going on and things remaining in elevated levels, they might just intervene, etc., and do stuff like that. But I don't see, I see that pattern again repeating, because there's nothing to indicate that, the supply side issues would be there. As far as rupee doing better, that is also because dollar has gone down, it is depreciated. And it's, normally in the past couple of years, you haven't seen that happening. But this time what has happened in the past month and a half, shall we say, or maybe a little more than that, the dollar is actually depreciated. So our economy is opening up, as I mentioned a little while earlier, and dollar is depreciated. So on that front, we don't have I don't see a problem. In terms of oil, international oil prices tend to create inflationary pressures. But as you would be, reading one of the news items, and there's a news on that front, there also people are struggling to keep the price level, international oil prices. So all in all, I don't think that inflation situation will go out of hand. It will most probably remain in a particular zone, and I think there's no cause for alarm at the moment.
Okay. In support of what I said about global food prices looking up would help more than hurt, I would say right now the only performing sector of the Indian economy is agriculture. And we have more positives in the prospect of a bumper kharif crop that will soon be arriving in the mandis. La Nina isn't bad for Indian farmers, as the rains from it normally benefit from the winter, spring, rabi crop as well. So in light of what I just mentioned, the positives, it seems the FPI in food prices should not hurt us, the Indian economy.
I would tend to agree with that. These are from some of the other data. Maybe the production data is too early, but there's some other data that's coming in terms of purchase of vehicles and stuff like that. Now there seems to be some data coming in which is indicating, and also the kind of marketing moves the auto sector people are making as far as rural or non sort of urban areas that we are talking about. Now, if you take a look at that, it seems to be indicating that there is a little bit of a income sort of a bounce out there that's happening. Of course, Rajesh, as we know, bulk of the economy, shall we say, the bulk of the GDP is non-agri, an overwhelming portion. So the question for us, the challenge for us is how soon can we fix it? And of course, it depends on how well we manage to control this outbreak at the moment.
रुपए पर चर्चा अभी भी हुई है। श्रोताओं को हम जानकारी देना चाहेंगे कि आज रुपए की स्थिति क्या रही। अंतर बैंकिंग विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में $1 की तुलना में रुपया आज 25 पैसे कमजोर हुआ है, 73 रुपए 63 पैसे के स्तर पर आ गया। उधर दुनिया की 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर इंडेक्स में आज थोड़ी सी मजबूती देखी गई है। डॉलर इंडेक्स में यानी डॉलर 0.43% मजबूत हुआ है। डॉलर इंडेक्स 93.11 पर पहुंच गया है। उदिन, अभी आपने चर्चा की कुछ क्षेत्र खुल गए हैं और कुछ क्षेत्रों में जो कारोबार की स्थितियां हैं वो फिर से अपेक्षाकृत अच्छी दिखने के आसार हैं। कौन कौन से ऐसे क्षेत्र आपको लग रहे हैं जहां पर कि हम कृषि के अलावा, ऑटो के अलावा जहां पर की संभावनाएं बनती दिख रही हैं कि वहां वृद्धि देखने को मिलेगी?
देखिए, बात जहां जहां हमारे बिल्कुल बंद हो चुके थे, सारे आपके कोई मूवमेंट ही नहीं हो रहा था, वहां वो होता चला जा रहा है। पर जैसे ऑटोमोबाइल क्षेत्र में जहां पे बहुत जबरदस्त इम्पैक्ट हुआ है, वहां पे कुछ सम लेवल ऑफ रिकवरी, ये साल एक तरीके से आप इतना अगर बैकफुट पे रहेंगे तो फाइनेंशियल ईयर में आप रिकवर तो कर नहीं पाएंगे। नेट आप नीचे ही रहेंगे, मतलब वृद्धि आपको मिलेगी नहीं। ये ओवरऑल इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ जो है, आर्थिक वृद्धि के दर में भी दिखेगा और इसके बारे में कोई भी डिबेट कर ही नहीं रहा है। पर फिर भी मैं ये जरूर ये देखते हुए अच्छा लग रहा है कि वहां से खबरें आ रही हैं कि आपकी ऑटो क्षेत्र में, टू व्हीलर्स में खासकर, वहां से कुछ अच्छी खबरें आने लग रही हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ रूरल सेल्स, देहात के इलाकों से आ रही हैं। तो कुछ कंज्यूमर गुड्स रिलेटेड एरियाज में भी धीरे धीरे कुछ खबरें आने लगी हैं। बाकी इसके अलावा मनोज, फार्मास्यूटिकल जो हमारा जो सेक्टर है वो तो ऑल वेदर सेक्टर है, वो तो परफॉर्म करता ही रहेगा। ऑफ कोर्स ये देखना पड़ेगा उसमें नेट उसका क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा। बट कुछ और सेक्टर्स हैं जो प्रेशर में हैं और अभी कामत कमेटी रिपोर्ट आई है लोन रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग की, तो जैसे ही ये मिड सितंबर तक या उससे पहले अगर अनाउंस हो जाए कि बैंक क्या करना चाहते हैं, कुछ सेक्टर्स के बारे में उन्होंने चर्चा की है, तो टेक्सटाइल वगैरह हैं, तो वो वहां पे अगर ये रिलीफ थोड़ा बहुत मिल जाता है हमारे कंपनीज को, एंटरप्राइजेस को, तो फिर काफी हेल्प होगा, काफी क्लैरिटी मिलेगी और काफी एक सेंस ऑफ डेफिनेटनेस शैल से या थोड़ी सी सर्टेनिटी आ जाएगी पूरे माहौल में।
उदिन, यहाँ पर हम आज के कारोबार को ध्यान में रखते हुए आईटी सेक्टर की ओर आपका ध्यान ले चलना चाहेंगे। HCL टेक हो या इन्फोसिस हो या TCS हो या टेक महिंद्रा हो, कह लें, इन सब के शेयरों में हम आज तेजी देख रहे हैं। आईटी सेक्टर कुल मिलाकर जो अभी का कोरोना का माहौल है और आने वाले दिन में जैसे आसार रहते दिख रहे हैं, उसमें आईटी सेक्टर का प्रदर्शन किस दिशा में जाता दिख रहा है?
देखिए मनोज, इसमें चैलेंज तो उनके पास बरकरार है, क्योंकि ह्यूमन मूवमेंट, मान लीजिए आपको जो मूवमेंट करनी पड़ती है आपके प्रोफेशनल की या बिजनेस डेवलपमेंट के लिए आपको करना पड़ता है, उसमें दिक्कत तो आ रही है। दूसरी बात ये है कि प्रोटेक्शनिस्ट टेंडेंसी, मतलब लोगों का जो मूवमेंट है, आप अगर इमिग्रेशन रिलेटेड या उससे जुड़ी हुई जो बातें हैं, जहाँ पे आप फॉरेन प्रोफेशनल्स को, दूसरे देशों की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, वहां पे अगर रेस्ट्रिक्शन आती है, क्योंकि इकोनॉमिक डाउनटर्न में ये सब चीजें एकदम से सामने आ जाती हैं, तो वो एक इशू रहेगा। बाकी कई चीजें हैं हमारे आईटी सेक्टर के स्ट्रक्चरल जो चैलेंजेस हैं, जो एक ट्रांजिशन था कुछ एरियाज में आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस दूसरी चीजों में है, वो चैलेंज बरकरार है क्योंकि दूसरे प्लेयर्स उसमें मौजूद हैं। तो वो ट्रांजिशन कितने अच्छे से करते हैं। वैसे मनोज अपॉर्चुनिटी भी है क्योंकि सारा कुछ डिजिटाइजेशन हो रहा है विश्व भर में, क्योंकि कॉन्टैक्ट लेस आप काम करने की कोशिश करें, वो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है। अब क्या ये अपॉर्चुनिटी Y2K टाइप का अपॉर्चुनिटी जो सन 2000 साल में आया था हमारे देश में, देश के आईटी सेक्टर के लिए, जिससे हमारे देश के आईटी सेक्टर की प्रतिष्ठा बढ़ी, क्या हम वो चीज कर पाएंगे यहाँ पे, उस थ्रेट को इस चैलेंज को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी में कन्वर्ट कर पाएंगे? ये एक इम्तिहान की घड़ी रहेगी। तो ये बिजनेस एज यूजुअल नहीं रहेगा आईटी सेक्टर में, तो दोनों चीजें ही हैं, आपके पास थ्रेट भी है, अपॉर्चुनिटीज भी।
उदयन, हम एक खास टेंडेंसी यानी प्रवृत्ति की ओर आपका ध्यान ले चलना चाहेंगे। कोरोना को लेकर जो प्रवृत्ति पैदा हुई है, अधिकांश आईटी कंपनियों में कह लें कि घर से काम करने की जो कह लें कि व्यवस्था हुई है, यह व्यवस्था क्या एक बड़ा परिवर्तन लाएगी इस क्षेत्र में ऑपरेशनल कॉस्ट घटाने की दिशा में? क्योंकि यदि वर्क टू होम का कल्चर बढ़ता है तो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन पर ऑपरेशनल कॉस्ट घटेगा, उसके अलावा और भी कई सारे खर्चे हैं जो इन कंपनियों के घटते अभी के हालात में दिखते नजर आ रहे हैं।
मनोज, वो तो होगा ही, क्योंकि अगर आप दफ्तरों में जो पहले होता था, बहुत अच्छी नई बिल्डिंगें हैं जहाँ पे हमारे आईटी ऑफिसेज हैं, पर वो मूवमेंट तो हो नहीं पा रही। पर इसमें जो कॉस्ट सेविंग्स आप करेंगे, मतलब मान लीजिए आप मतलब ऑफिस स्पेस को रैशनलाइज करते हैं और उससे कॉस्ट घटाते हैं, वो जो आपके नंबर्स पे जो दबाव हो रहा है, रेवेन्यू और मार्जिन पे जो दबाव है, उसको ये ऑफसेट करेगा। उसके वजह से कोई अपसाइड जबरदस्त मिलने वाला है ऐसा मुझे नहीं लगता। दूसरी बात है, ये एक मिक्स बन जाएगा, एक जैसे कि हम यूनाइटेड स्टेट अमेरिका में देख रहे हैं, वहां पे उन्होंने तय कर ही लिया है कि कई जगह में ऑफिसों को बंद किया जा रहा है। तो वो एक मास एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हो रहा है जो हमारे भारत में भी हमें देखने को मिल सकता है। पर एक मार्केट मंथली जैसे प्रोग्राम है जहाँ पे हम स्टॉक प्राइसेस या इकोनॉमिक नंबर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, इमीडिएटली वो एक आपका जो डाउन साइड है, आप जो नीचे की तरफ माइनस मूवमेंट हुआ है, नेगेटिव मूवमेंट हो, उसको चेक करने की कोशिश कर सकता है। उसकी वजह से कोई जबरदस्त अपसाइड नहीं मिलेगी। हाँ, एक ओवरऑल लॉन्ग टर्म ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन आईटी सेक्टर में डेफिनेटली आप जो कह रहे हैं वो होने वाला है और होगी।
Then two rating agencies today revised the country's FY21 GDP growth rate. The India Rating and Research today forecast minus 11.8% from minus 5.3% for the country's GDP FY21, and Fitch has also projected a massive 10.5% contraction of the India's economy in the current financial year. At the same time, both are saying that the GDP should rebound strongly in 3Q20, October-December, amid reopening of the economy. And there are actually signs that you also mentioned a while back. They say that the recovery is going to be sluggish and uneven. How much do you agree with the figures, the revised figures that these two agencies have given?
Well, Rajesh, after the disclosure of the data, first quarter data, GDP data, this was bound to happen. They're just doing a follow-up of it. And they might revise it upwards or downwards. And I don't think we should get too hassled by it because see, what has happened has happened. And there isn't much we could have done. This is not in our hands. In the circumstances that our country faced, and as a nation, I speak for myself only. I think we have done a pretty commendable job in dealing with this. Given the kind of challenges and our unique setup that we have, we are an open, democratic country. We have our challenges in terms of health infrastructure. The resources are not unlimited. Even if we had unlimited resources, we can see how difficult things have been for other countries. So we haven't done as badly as some people would argue, and we should not, even if a rating agency comes and gives us a negative figure, let's remember it will get revised again. So we should be absolutely focused on the task at hand, which is to make sure that we get back on track, and in most places we are. And we should also be realistic enough to realize that it's going to be a negative sort of a number. If you the first 3 months, if you're doing minus 20%, you will overall have a clock a negative figure. So that's a done thing. And therefore, now the question is how much of the lost ground can we recover and how fast we can do it. I completely agree with you. In the next quarter, which will be the third quarter, we can reasonably expect things to rebound quite a bit. Yes, it will be uneven simply because the outbreak of infections will keep happening. We'll possibly hit our peak and we'll be off that peak, and we'll go off that peak, come down. So that will be a plus point. And we would have figured out many other responses, Rajesh. As we were hit by something which we had very little information. The world had little information.
Okay.
So
in support of what you just said, the high frequency indicators show that the economy is recovering strongly in the unlock phase. Several indicators, you also mentioned some of them as PMI, manufacturing, 8 core sectors, e-way bills, power consumption, railway freight, cargo traffic, passenger vehicle sales, Kharif sowings are converging to levels observed at the same level as we did last year. The V-shaped recovery in these indicators suggests that the government's measures are enabling a recovery in the unlock phase.
Absolutely. And Rajesh, one of the facilitators, I mean, there is a renewed discussion about stimulus. But before that, there's the loan restructuring. Because remember, if an entrepreneur is saddled with loans and he or she is not clear about the repayment burden that person is facing, then the whole thing is there's a lot of uncertainty. If that gets sorted out, Rajesh, and I think in the next 10 odd days the banks will come out with their whole thing, how they're going to treat, there will be far more certainty. We will now, all the numbers that we'll be talking about will be far more, not out of the hat kind of a thing, because before, Rajesh, we were not getting enough data.
Sure.
Now, when we get this sense, even before a stimulus, if we can do something about the loans, and if you want an example how it helps, we can just see in US and some other countries where they have fixed, where they have announced what they're going to do about these loans. Things have gone back to some level of definiteness. There's a predictability, certain predictability. All that will come in, and the markets will also respond accordingly.
Okay, and you mentioned about the government finally identifying the non-salaried middle class and small businesses as the target audience for a second round of stimulus. The timing, Udayan, of all this is very important, of this rollout, and crucial in getting the maximum benefit. How should the government be going about it now?
I think, Rajesh, there's lots of reports now beginning to come in, and there's something that might come in a little before there was a sense that the government is looking at some kind of a year-end kind of a stimulus, but maybe they want to do it now and give it a little bit of a leg up to the. So they'll probably do it's not going to be a machine gun or a carpet bombing. It will be a rifle shot, sniper kind of approach where you hit the targets which will create the maximum impact. See, Rajesh, what the government had to do was to protect the most vulnerable. So that it has done, because negative news or negative developments actually saps the whole sentiment of a country. So the government couldn't have afforded it. So that it has done. Now it will do a rifle shot approach, which I think it's just a guess on my part, but I think I wouldn't be off the mark. And then probably follow it up when there is some definiteness in terms of how this pandemic will be combated medically, in terms of some kind of a medicine or a vax, whatever, or a jab. Then they'll probably come with a little more ammo out there. So maybe they're going to break it up a little bit and do something like that.
आइए खबरों का सिलसिला आगे बढ़ाएं, नजर डालें वैश्विक बाजारों पर। सबसे पहले ध्यान देते हैं एशियाई शेयर बाजार पर, जहां कुल मिलाकर आज तेजी दिखी है। जापान का निक्केई 225 सूचकांक 0.8% लाभ के साथ बंद हुआ। दक्षिण कोरिया का कोस्पी और चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स दोनों 0.7% बढ़त के साथ बंद हुए। उधर हांगकांग का हैंग सेंग 0.1% ऊपर आकर बंद हुआ। हालांकि सिंगापुर में बिकवाली का दबाव बना रहा और कारोबार के अंत में स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स 0.2% घाटे में रहा। यूरोपीय बाजारों की ओर चलें तो समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक वहां बिकवाली दिख रही थी। अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में लंदन का FTSE 100 0.4% नीचे चल रहा था। जर्मनी का डेक्स 1.1% घाटे में था और फ्रांस के CAC 40 पर ध्यान दें तो यह 1.6% गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था।
The US equity indices remained closed yesterday on the occasion of Labor Day. In the last business week, the Wall Street indices logged its biggest weekly fall in more than 2 months, mainly due to a plunge in tech stocks. Then today, the Asian stocks regained modestly, albeit modestly, as investors saw a scope that the US tech shares would recover from their recent fall. So, with the opening tomorrow, you think the tech shares will rebound, and will that have a positive repercussion on the Indian market as well?
Well, Rajesh, the top fund guys, I mean the fund institutions in Wall Street, they seem to be thinking that it's going to be rebounding. So, and there isn't much that otherwise one can, see. The typical dampeners have been if there has been information about new infections coming in, some kind of a natural calamity like a hurricane tornado type of thing happening, or US-China. We are just talking about the US markets at the moment. US-China tension. Now, these have been there. I mean, these are not going to go away, and we don't expect a major spike in these things. So, some of these corrections will happen on a risk-off day, and then you'll come back, and you'll have a risk-on behavior. It's almost like a switch, Rajesh. One day when the switch is on, the buying happens. One day the switch is off, the buying becomes a little less, or there's some sell-off. So it's going to be like that. That's what my sense is.
Okay, moving on. The oil today declined for the 5th session in a row to trade below $42 a barrel. Crude prices fell amid concerns that a recovery in demand could weaken as COVID-19 infections are going up around the world. In intraday trade, Brent crude prices were trading around $41.90 per barrel, while WTI crude prices were around $37.90 per barrel. Now, then infections are not going down, and it seems, does it seem that the oil will continue to decline as it did for the 5th session in a row today?
Well, Rajesh, the important part about the oil market at the moment is in this year, of course, has been the enormous amount of supply cuts that have happened. So they are constantly cutting supply. So they probably, and when I'm saying they, basically OPEC and OPEC plus the other countries like Russia and others. So we can expect if there is a pressure, they'll cut the supply, but they'll keep it in the 40-45 range. For India, we will take that because anything below 65 is great, and right now even $1 really going down helps us because we are under pressure. So it works just fine for us. So, but coming back, the answer is that they will keep it in that range, and they'll rather cut supply rather than settle for a lower price.
आइए चलें सर्राफा बाजार। दिल्ली सर्राफा बाजार में आज सोने और चांदी की चमक तेज रही है। खरीदारों द्वारा समर्थन मिलने से सोने का मूल्य आज 122 रुपए बढ़ा 51,989 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम पर पहुंच गया। उधर चांदी भी 340 रुपए की छलांग लगाकर 69,665 रुपए प्रति किलो पर पहुंच गई। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों में भी सोना थोड़ा सा मजबूत हुआ है, $1,930 प्रति आउंस के स्तर पर पहुंच गया। चांदी अपने पूर्व स्तर $26.91 प्रति आउंस पर टिकी रही। बस यहीं पर श्रोताओं की ओर से उदयन हम आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहेंगे।
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Rajesh.
And before we close, the headlines once again. Domestic equity markets close with modest losses amid mixed global cues. Sensex ends at 38,365. Nifty settles at 11,317. The rupee weakens 25 paise against the US dollar, and oil declines for the 5th session in a row to trade below $42 a barrel. That's all we have in this edition of Market Mantra. Till tomorrow, goodbye.
Patra, Patra.